Welcome to Bible study. We are preparing this study for Sunday, October 9. By the time that Sunday rolls around, I'll be back from my vacation, and I'll be here among you again in this place to worship and to preach again after a prayerfully a long and restful trip to visit my son and to see the Passion Play at Ober Ammergau. We have been studying the Gospel according to St. John. And last week, we saw the first of Jesus' signs. And so that means we have to talk just a little bit about Jesus as a sign worker and what it means to have a sign. John arranges his Gospel into 7 chunks, 7 signs. And the astute reader of John is going to pay attention to what the signs say. In this first sign, it says Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. And we talked about how a miracle such as turning water into wine for somebody in the ancient world would have really attested to the divinity of the person who did it. But it's interesting that only the servants could see it. Only the servants knew where the wine had come from. Many of the people who enjoyed it did not. There will be more signs to come. As we come to them, make sure that you are carefully recording what it is that John says about Jesus, or particularly what Jesus says about himself in those sign acts. We're not going to see another sign so much today, as we're going to see Jesus interacting and John really starting the dramatic and the plot development of his gospel. Because in all 4 of the gospels, what will happen is, by the end, a group of people will put Jesus on a cross and they will kill him, and he will rise again. That's essential to this story. And so Jesus, in these words, is going to start that conflict, so to speak, that tension between himself and these enemies, these leaders of the Jews who will turn and reject him. John has already said he came to his own, but his own did not receive him. They did not listen to him. That's back in the prologue. We're going to start to pick that thread up today. The Passover of the Jews, it says. Remember, he's in Capernaum. He's there for a few days. The Passover of the Jews. So this is springtime. This is when the Jewish people come together for their the great pilgrimage feast. I mean, think of the Hajj for Muslims. This is a little bit of what Passover meant for Jews at the time. They would come back to Jerusalem and they would celebrate the Passover there. They could celebrate it anywhere, but it was best celebrated in Jerusalem. The Passover of the Jews was at hand. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons and the money changers sitting there. Like any time you bring a whole bunch of visitors into town, people will try and monetize that visit. This was true in the ancient world too. Paul Meyer, the LCMS historian who taught at Western Michigan, says that the archaeologists tell us that the city of Jerusalem it normally had about 50,000 people living in it. It wasn't a huge place. But that for Passover week, that would swell to maybe 5 times that number of people. 250,000 people suddenly camped out, in any open field and jammed into every place. The city was just full of people. And the locals pretty much made their money, their living, off of selling things to and serving that pilgrim community. And so they were selling oxen and sheep for sacrifices, pigeons, and they were changing money. They had to do that because inside the temple courts, you couldn't use a Roman coin because a Roman coin always had the face of a Roman emperor on it, and you couldn't do a graven image inside the temple courts. And so you had to change it to a denarius, or change it to, a shekel, and make it into an acceptable coin. And of course, anytime you change money, you know the money changer takes a cut, no matter which way you're going. Jesus made a whip out of cords, and he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers, and he overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." That's actually a quote from the Old Testament, from the Psalms. So the Jews said to him, "What sign do you show us for doing these things? You're messing everything up." Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." Well, the temple of Herod, it was actually the second temple, the one they had built after the exile. Herod had gone through this massive remodeling project. There was almost nothing left of the original building. It was this grand thing. He had actually leveled the top of the hill, and he had built these giant walls to make a platform for it. And it was considered one of the ancient wonders of the world. And it took 46 years. The Jews said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But Jesus was speaking about the temple of his body. He's talking about his resurrection. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. The scripture? "Zeal for your house will consume me." And they believed the word Jesus had spoken. In 3 days, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it again. John here is introducing a concept for us that's really important. If you want to read more about this, I kind of encourage you to look at a guy named N.T. Wright. He really hammers. This verse just pivots for him a whole bunch of his theology. He believes that Jesus is making a claim that he himself is the temple. It's pretty clear he is here, but he says that is a really important claim that Jesus makes, that the Christian community makes with it, that in fact the holy site is not a geographic location in Jerusalem. The holy sites, the holy place, is where Jesus is. And so when Paul, in Ephesians and 1 Peter in his letter says, you are the stones being built into the temple, of which Jesus is the foundation, Jesus is the cornerstone, and the apostles and the prophets are the foundation, that is not to be taken as simply some nice metaphor, but as a governing kind of image to describe who we are. And that Jesus is really appropriating all of that Old Testament talk about temple to himself. That once Jesus says this, that building in Jerusalem ceases to matter so much. It isn't really the deal anymore. Jesus takes all of that to himself. Now, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many faithed in him. Remember that interesting word. Many believed in him, it says in your text, but the Greek says faithed in him, his name, when they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus, on his part, did not entrust himself to them, because he knew all people and needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man. It's very interesting. He doesn't need people to bear witness to him. It says he doesn't need people to bear witness about man. He doesn't need people to tell him people are broken. He knows it full well because he became a man, because he became one of us. And so Jesus knows that they're going to twist and turn and distort everything that he does. That will happen. So he doesn't use that. He doesn't become that Messiah king that people were really looking for, that warrior against the Romans, that new Moses who was going to be like the old Moses, but they're going to be able to use this one better this time. No, he remains who he is. He remains above all of that. And so he refuses to be manipulated by any of it. So we're going to talk this week. We've talked this week a little bit about his independence, a little bit about his status, and a little bit about the claim he makes for himself. All of those Old Testament sacrifices, all of those things where it talks about what the priest does, all of those moments where the glory of God fills the temple and the tabernacle of old, it's all about Jesus. We will see you on Sunday. God bless you all. Bye-bye.